Welcome to Brain Break. I'm Lloyd James, and this is where we uncover real stories of people who are changing the game. No surface level stories, just raw, honest conversations about the challenges they have faced and what truly shaped them to be what they are today. Let's get into today's episode. Rachel.
Lloyd.
Thank you for coming onto the Brain Break, the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You reached out to me, I think, through your Brain Break podcast when I started putting stuff out. You were like, I'd love to come onto there.
Yeah.
Right? And when you put your first foot forward and you asked to come on, that takes a bit of, it's a bold move to do, right? To put yourself out there and let the listeners and viewers to like get to know you a bit better. Can you take us back where you're from and what was your upbringing like?
Yeah, so I'm from New Zealand, a small town called Rotorua.
Sorry, how do you say that one?
Rotorua.
Rotorua. Okay, yeah.
If I had my actual Māori pronunciation turned on, it should be Rotorua, but I pronounce.
See, I think I prefer that one.
Yeah,
I prefer that one. I prefer that version for sure, because otherwise you got my English Rotorua.
Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, central of the North Island, and obviously now live in Perth, WA.
Okay, so let's focus a bit more in that New Zealand part.
Mm-hmm.
You were there till you were what, about 21?
Yeah, no. So I moved here at 23. Yeah.
23.
Yeah,
Okay.
23.
Can you tell me what your early days was like with your parents or whoever you were living with? What was that like growing up where you were?
How much time do you have?
We have as long as you want.
And what can I say and not say?
You can say as much as you want or as little as you want, but I just want to get to know who really Rachel is.
Yeah.
From your upbringing point of view at this stage.
Yeah. So I had a pretty interesting upbringing. I'd say it wasn't rough. Like, we had money and I had food in the fridge all the time and a nice roof over our head. But I was raised in a family of, I guess you could say, criminals. So I come from a background of, there was lots of illegal activity going on in my upbringing and like gangs and that's sort of where I come from. So that's why I say like, what can I say and not say? Because it's interesting.
Nothing's really sort of off limit as long as you're comfortable talking about it. But that's one side of you, that I would never have guessed.
Yeah.
When you say gangs and violence and that kind of thing,
is
there anything that stands out in particular?
My parents, so my dad was in jail my whole life and until I was 18. And so, sorry, not my whole life, from the age 7 until 18. So like those primal years of my life, my dad was in jail. And then my mum actually also went to jail when I turned 15. So, from 15 onwards for like those, teenage years of my life, I was independent. I moved out of home at 15. I moved to Australia. I lived in Brisbane on my own at 16. And so, I guess it's an interesting one.
Okay, my questions have all gone out of the window now because I kind of like didn't quite prep for those kind of questions. But hold on. So dad's in prison.
Yeah.
Mum then goes to prison.
Yeah.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah,
support
so I'm
you?
the youngest. I've got I've got 3 siblings. One of them passed away a few years ago, so now I've got 2 left. But like I said, I'm the youngest, and my sister is 5 years older than me, and then my brother 7 years. So they had a decent age gap in between me and them, and they looked after me and they rode for me, and I would be nothing without them. So,
that alone, when you're growing up, I guess you need a figure, father figure, mother figure, whatever, that kind of backbone to support you.
Yeah, that was my siblings, and they were that even before my parents went to jail because my parents were off doing other activities, so they were never really around.
Did you feel that you felt different to your mates, maybe at school or anything of that sort? Did you feel different?
Yeah, 100%. School was... I hated school. I didn't fit in there. I used to get bullied because my parents were in jail and they were like, oh, your family's criminals and all that sort of stuff. So I was bullied a lot in school. That's why when my mum went to jail as well, I was like, because she was the only reason I stayed in school. She wanted me to stay in school. But when she went to jail, I was like, well, I'm leaving school now because you can't tell me what to do because you're not here.
For you, was that normal for you? Do you think that lifestyle and what you knew, was that normal?
Me, it was normal. Yeah, I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until I got older and I started going to therapy and, I'd talk about it with my therapist and they'd be like, what the fuck,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so how old were you when your mother went to
I
prison?
was 15.
You were 15.
Yeah.
So dad's not around, mum then goes to prison. Your brothers or your siblings are older than you at this stage.
Yeah.
You're the youngest. What happened at that sort of age when
So
you were 15?
we stayed in our family house, but my brother moved back in because he had moved out with his girlfriend. He moved back in and he just started putting the fuel in my car and started paying my school fees and like doing all that stuff that your parents would do. My brother took that on for me. And then when I said to him, like, I don't want to stay in school anymore, I want to get a job and like start making money, he was obviously all for it because he was, supporting me at that time. So yeah, I think I stayed in school for a couple months and then I just left school and got a job and started working full time.
What was your first job?
I was a waitress. Yeah.
Did you find, was that challenging? Was that different?
I loved it. I loved making my own money. I loved being in control of, my life basically because I'm a control freak. So going to school felt like one of those things that was like I was being forced to do, but I didn't want to do it.
Using the terminology, being a control freak, do you think that has that been since your parents
1,000%.
won't have been around? You've had to take control of certain situations and showcase you're a leader, or you got full control of that particular
1,000%.
moment.
I think also like from a young age, seeing the sorts of things that I saw, I wanted to take control of where my life ended up from that point onwards because, there's two routes when you grow up in a life like that. It's like you go down that route or you go the opposite way. So I think I learnt that, I guess, trait of controlling from like wanting to control the way that my life ended up.
What were the things you saw?
There were probably like just things that can't really be spoken about on a public platform, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, fair enough. Just thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah.
So age 15,
Yeah.
you got your first waitressing job.
Yeah.
How long were you in that job for?
I was there for, it would have been about a year. And then when I turned 16, I left and moved to Brisbane.
So I mean, you're 16, you'd never been to Brisbane before.
No.
I mean, how do you even get there? What's
stayed.
going through your mind? Think, I need to get to Brisbane. Talk us through those emotions at that time.
I think I just wanted to get out of there. I always knew that I was destined for more than what I had been brought up in. Like that was a feeling I'd had from a really young age. So I think like when I had that ability to make the decision to do it, I just jumped on it. And my brother was very supportive. We come from a very small town where like there's no opportunity there. There's nothing for you there. And there's a lot of bad influences there. So I think he jumped at the opportunity for me to get away from that as well.
So you land up in Brisbane. Where did you stay? I
had a friend there. So she was around my age and she was living with, like we were kids. So she was still living at home with her family. But they opened their doors and let me go and live with them there. So I just did that. And I was there for about 2 years before I decided to go home because I was missing out on my nephew's life and he was really young. And I wanted to be.
So although your parents haven't been around, so to speak, family's still very important to you.
Very. Yeah, very. And even still, my relationship with like my dad has been rocky my whole life, but my mum is like an absolute legend. She's my best friend, and regardless of everything that we've been through.
Do you still talk to them now?
Very much so, yeah.
And everything, normal contact, that kind of thing?
With my mum, definitely, yeah.
Do you ever talk about the past with your mum?
Probably not as much as we should, to be honest. I think I don't think I talked about it with anyone ever until I started going to therapy and realizing that like I need to talk about it because it makes me who I am, and it's important to open up, I think.
I can only say thank you for sharing that, because that's just one part that I feel that obviously people listening to this there might be people that relate to this, right? Yeah. And what we see on your social media is way the distance from what you've just explained to what we see on socials. We would not put two and two together. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and it must be bringing back some deep thoughts about the stuff that you went through. You're obviously in Brisbane family friend opened the doors for you to settle there.
Mm.
Did you have a game plan?
No, not at all. I still don't think I have a game plan. I'm not really, like, I'm organized, but I'm not a plan ahead kind of person.
Okay, and what did you do in Brisbane then?
So I got a job at Singapore Airlines working in the business lounge at the airport. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's gone from like, you know, the Bronx of like,
Yeah.
you know, your town
Yeah.
to like going to business lounge.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. And you finished school early.
Yeah.
How did you get that job?
Well, I had I went through a recruitment agency. And obviously in Australia, it's not like this in New Zealand, but in Australia you have to have certain licenses to work in bars and restaurants and stuff. So I had a recruitment agency who put me through those, I can't remember what they call it, like the liquor licensing. And then once I got through that course, she was like, "Oh, I've got a client who's got a job here. Would you want to do that?" And like from a young age, I always thought I wanted to be a flight attendant. So I was like, absolutely, I will do that. Like,
You got the height. You got the height for it.
Well, I'm too tall. That's why I couldn't do it. I actually interviewed for Air New Zealand, and they were like, "No, you're too tall."
Oh my word! My wife, right? She keeps saying she wanted to become a air hostess, flight attendant. She's too short.
Oh,
Because obviously can't pop the bags at the top or whatever, or you know whatever it is. So
well,
interesting.
apparently I'll be banging my head on the
True, right?
which I do now
Oh
when
my
I travel.
word! Yes, no, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So you land up in that job in the business lounge, right?
Yeah.
And you transition to go back home for a bit, just see your nephews, see them grow up. How long were you there for?
I think I was back home for, I guess 5 years. Close
So
to.
you left
I
Brisbane
went,
to go back.
Yeah, I went home.
So okay, so did you feel like you took a step back? Like, do you feel like you took a couple of steps
No,
back? Like, you
no.
feel like you left to go and chase something different and to get away from it all, but then yet you came back to it.
I
So
feel
what happened
like
then?
I got that something different that I was looking for though, and it just like really opened my eyes up to the world, I guess. So during that time of me living in Brisbane, it also sparked like a bit of a travel bug inside of me. So I did move home, but family was important to me, and my niece and nephew are very important to me. But I also like learned how to make good money, learned how to save good money, which meant that I could travel because that's what I wanted. So from the age of 17, I started traveling the world.
Well, okay, tell me a little bit more. How did you learn to save money? Because today, like, we earn money, right?
Mm.
And some people are very good at it because they've got the foundation from when they were, you know, from parents, grandparents. You put, you know, you get 20, you put 5 away, you spend 15 or whatever that might be, right? How did you? I suppose you didn't really have that sort of
No.
background or that support to teach you how to do it. How did you learn that?
To be honest, I don't know. I think like I knew what I wanted and I knew that money was the only way to get it. And like, even though my upbringing was kind of crazy, one thing that I always got was what I wanted. You know, like my mum always gave me what I wanted. So I knew what I wanted to do, but I was like, I don't know how else to get it other than save for it. So I just saved my little heart out. And every time I would save like a good bulk sum of cash, I would just buy plane tickets and fly.
Wow, you'd buy a plane ticket, which most people would go and buy the next, you know, trainers or clothing or AirPods or whatever there was at that time, and you're saving to buy a plane ticket.
Yeah.
What was your next trip after that when you came back home for 5 years?
I did Southeast Asia. So I did, well, not all of it, Thailand, Hong Kong, Singapore. But it's probably important to note that my brother is a massive travel bug. So I got influenced from him, I think. Yeah.
And how old were you when you started traveling Southeast Asia?
17.
By yourself?
With my 2 best friends who were also 17.
Wow. Okay. And how long do you go traveling for?
We were there for 3 weeks only.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Was that an eye-opener for you?
massive. Yeah, like my first stop out of the country was Hong Kong. And I was like, what on earth is happening here? Yeah.
That's so interesting. And so you're traveling for 3 weeks or so with your friends. And do you have any particular memories from that trip that stick with you for the rest of your life?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had some wild nights out. Like, we were 17, so we weren't even legal to drink in New Zealand, you know, but like in Southeast Asia, they don't care. So we just, yeah,
Had a good
got
time.
hammered, yeah.
That's so interesting. So you have your trip. You're starting to feel like traveling is your thing, right?
Yeah.
So you save hard. You go traveling in Southeast Asia. then what? You have the blue. What was it? What they call the Monday blues? What do they call it? Like when you
Travel blue.
travel blues or whatever it is.
I
You think,
did.
oh my god, what am I going to do now?
I did.
Where did you come back after the trip? Where did you go after that?
Well, I came home and worked again. I started working at like a burger joint, like the New Zealand equivalent of grilled.
Yep.
Yeah. So I started working there and just and then I got a second job. And at one stage I was working like 80 hours a week just to save money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because you obviously you say you didn't really have a plan, but you knew you were saving for something like
To travel. Yeah.
to travel. That wasn't even to buy a house or anything of that sort. How interesting. So, okay, you're there. You're working 80-hour weeks. Where does Perth fit in?
So I came to Perth. I've got like a group of Kiwi boys, like a really close friends that I grew up with here. And it was always kind of on the cards for me. Like I came and visited them once and I really liked it here, but I only stayed for about 6 months at that time. Then I went home. And so this time when I came back, it was just like, I just came to visit them. I broke up from like a long-term relationship. Me and my ex were together for 6 years. And like, we were kind of planning for that whole like marriage, house, kids sort of thing. Then we split up. And like I said, I come from a small town. So it's kind of hard to like get away or escape. So I just booked a flight to Melbourne one way and then got a camper van and like went around Tassie on my own for like 2 weeks. And then the borders shut. And they were like, you can't come back to New Zealand. And I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. So COVID, obviously. And then I got stuck in Tassie. But I love Tassie, but there's only so much of Tassie that you can see. So I like spoke to my friends that are here and I was like, guys, I can't get back to New Zealand. Like, I've got to come see you. So they were like, yeah, come here.
So take us back. COVID time obviously affected a lot of people, including yourself. So you're in a camper van around Tasmania. You were just
solo tripping.
Solo trapping, and you were just living in the back of a van during COVID?
Yeah.
By yourself?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then you were just like, and still no plan, so to speak. You're just kind of going, okay, see what.
I thought, like, at that point, my real estate career had started and was thriving in New Zealand. So I was like, my boss was like, are you going to come home? Or like, you've got to come and, because real estate's one of those industries where like, you can't just take lots of time off because all your clients will just go somewhere else if they want to sell and you're not there. So yeah, at that time, like I had a career that was thriving, but I had no like need or like want to go home.
I feel like we missed a small bit.
Yeah,
like,
probably.
From burger joint to like,
oh yeah,
burger joint to like real estate. What happened there?
Burger joint lasted for 3 years. 2 years maybe. And during that time, I was just saving, traveling. And then like my ex that I was with at the time, he comes from a really good family. So he was like, look, like, what are you doing? You can't, like, you need something more than this. And his family sort of said to me, like, you'd be good in real estate. We know someone that you could, like, we could get an interview for you. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, let's do that. Did it. And then I started off as an administrator in real estate and loved it. I think I lasted maybe 5 or 6 months as an admin before I went to PA for the director. And then she taught me everything that I know. And I was her PA for maybe 10 months before I just jumped straight into sales.
Did she see something in you?
Yeah, absolutely. She taught me everything I knew, and she knew from like the beginning of me becoming her PA that I wasn't going to be doing that for very long. She sort of said like I give it a year or two, but I was like 10 months in and I was just...
Was that the first person you feel that potentially in your life saw something special in you?
I think my ex's family were probably the first one, to be honest. But yeah, other than them, 100%, yeah.
Did she have a big influence?
Massively. Yeah. And like her daughter was also in real estate. So like their whole family just influenced me a lot. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So you delve into the real estate stuff.
Yeah.
And then obviously you thought, I'm going to go on my little break, travel around Tassie. You're stuck there.
Yeah.
Boss is calling you up going, hey, come back. When you come back, but I can't. You're on a catch-22. So then what happened?
So then I came to Perth, and at this point I was in Perth for 3 weeks and in total like 6 weeks into the trip. And I told her I'll be going for 2 weeks. So she was like, as weeks went on, she was like, when are you coming back? And then on the 6th week, I just said to her, I don't think I'm coming back.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you just told her out straight?
Yeah. And she was like, are you sure about this? Because like, real estate is a really hard industry to crack into, but once you do, like if you give it up, like you have to start from scratch again. And especially because I was so young, like most real estate agents don't really start that part of their career until they're like 27, 28.
You were what, 20?
21.
21.
Yeah.
21. And you were saying here that your career starts at 21. But what was your mindset like at that age? Obviously you knew you were like a rookie, right?
Yeah.
And did you have anyone sort of thinking, no, you're too young for this, you don't get it? Like, did you have any challenges at that point?
I'd say the only people that thought that were like some clients that I was going to work for. But like all of the agents in my office, they saw something in me. Like they really, they put me on their listings. They let me run their home opens. Like they really saw something in me that I don't think I saw in myself. But yeah, I definitely, from clients, I got a lot of like, oh, you're a bit young to be selling our $2 million house, you know?
But what I find really interesting is the fact that people believed in you at a young age, 20, 21, and you're kind of doing these house opens, but that confidence has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from?
I think it comes from an array of things, but I think firstly, like my parents really, like my whole family, like I could tell them I'm gonna just become like, I don't know, a hippie, and they'd be proud of me. Do you know what I mean? Like they really, they don't have any expectations for me. They just, anything that I say, they're like, wow. Like they've always thought that I was, you know, I was smart enough to make my own decisions. And so I think they supported everything I did, and they told me that I could literally do anything.
Do you think that's because they knew that whatever you would do would be better than what they did?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. So you're in the real estate game here in Perth.
Yep.
Right. In regards to that, and you're opening up the home opens, and what do you remember any kind of challenges at that early stage that you may have come across, maybe with a client or people you're working with, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I think like probably at that time my age was my biggest challenge, not so much with people I was working with, but definitely with like other agents out in different offices and like, you know, specific clients that I was going for. From like even from that young of an age, I was always going for like the serious listings. Like I wasn't just happy with like a little $400,000 unit here. Like I was going for lifestyle blocks with 10 acres, and like I was serious from the get-go. So I think like some of those clients maybe didn't see the potential in me because of my age. I think like that was a little bit of a challenge. Otherwise, I don't know. To be honest, I'm like the kind of person that doesn't really hold on to that sort of stuff. Like I just, if I see a challenge, I overcome it and I move on.
So what does a sales pitch look like to sell one of those big blocks? Because, okay, hypothetically, if I had a massive block, right, 21-year-old comes to me and says, I can sell that block for you.
Yeah.
Right? I would have to have really good energy from that person.
Yeah.
Right? I'd have to go, okay, they've got something here.
Yeah.
But you're going for the big listings, because at the back of your mind, from what my understanding is, you're thinking, okay, the bigger the listing, the more money I can make from this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So did you have a mentor or anyone to sort of guide you through these big listings?
My boss, the owner of the company, she was also selling like much bigger lifestyle blocks than that. She was like specializing in farms. So like she mentored me and she helped me through it. But also like real estate, like I'm sure you've heard this before, but real estate is really a people business. Like you can go on as much as you want about what you know about the area or how much you know about this and that, but it's really just a connection. Like they trust you, they connect with you, or they don't. It's very much a people business.
Yeah, and you find yourself like right now we're having this conversation, but are you a different Rachel when you're on the real estate game?
I don't think so. I think that's what people like about me, is that I'm just like brutally honest, regardless of who you are or how much your house is worth.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's just that this is the version of me that my members get in the gym, and we can get to that another moment, but this is the same version that my clients get as well.
I love that. So you're settling into this job in Perth, being mentored by your boss, selling these big blocks.
That was in New Zealand.
That was in New Zealand.
That was in New Zealand.
But when you arrived in Perth.
Yeah, okay.
So was the real estate transfer over
Yeah.
to Perth?
Yeah, so when I arrived in Perth, I jumped around a couple different agencies until I found, where I felt like I belonged. And then same sort of situation happens again where at the moment I work hand in hand with the director of the company and he's mentored me to get to this point as well. So yeah, I think I've been blessed to have, because it's a dog eat dog world in real estate, like most of the time you don't get that support.
Do you think your bosses or anyone in the office feel threatened by you?
Well, in my office now, no. There's I'm the sales team in my office. It's just me and my boss. So the rest of them are all property managers. So no, I don't think that they are even affected.
Okay. Yeah, no, fair enough. Fair enough. So you settle yourself here and you get in for you found that the ideal real estate to be working for. Take us through your routines, like the morning routine stuff. Did that start getting involved at that time? When did that start kicking in?
No. I'd say my routine evolved more when business ownership came into it and I realized I don't have enough time in the day to be doing all the things that I need to get done. So that's sort of when my morning routine or my whole day routine evolved to what it is now.
Okay. So did you have any routines back then?
No. I wouldn't say I did, honestly.
So you were just Rachel trying to sell the biggest block you could or whatever the most expensive property you could.
Yeah.
Make as much money as you could.
Yeah.
What was the plan?
Again, I didn't have one. This is the crazy thing about me is that I'm not a planner. I don't have a plan. I just kind of, back then I think I was taking it day by day. I think now that I have a business, I know I need to be a bit more of a forward thinker. But I also think if you plan too much ahead, you just get disappointed when things don't happen,
And so, you're saying that you're not planning, but you're making, I presume, a relatively large amount of money, selling these properties. You're single at the time.
Yeah.
You're doing your thing. You're enjoying your weekends or whatever it might be. Well, probably at some point, but to a certain extent, because you're doing home opens. But okay, at no given point you've touched on that you're a fitness person. When did you think, I'm going to open up a gym?
So I was a member at the franchise that I own it, which is S30. So I was a member at S30 in the city, and it was a turning point for me in my fitness journey. I think being a gym person was something I always wanted, but I could just never find anything that really made me light up, that made me excited to go to the gym. And I think unless you are a fitness enthusiast, you have to enjoy the working out. Otherwise, you're never going to stay consistent. So I was a member and I just fell in love with the concept of it, but also it changed the trajectory of my appreciation for my health and well-being. And I think that was the major trigger for me. But second to that, I was maybe a year into living in Perth, and I hadn't found my people. You know what I mean? I moved here on my own. I didn't have any friends. I had that group that I grew up with, but they're all boys and they're all on different journeys as well. I hadn't found my people or where I felt like I belonged, and I think I was really longing for that. And that's sort of where the opening of a gym came into it. Is
Yeah, sorry.
It's just building a community, I think.
Yeah, so you felt like you had a place, you felt at home at S30.
Yeah.
And, could you just maybe give a little bit of an explanation for people that might be listening wherever? What concept of S30? Because people might just think, it's just another gym. Can you give us a little bit more understanding or a bit of a visual of what it looks like and what it feels like?
Yeah, so S30 is a fully immersive group fitness studio. So it's more strength-based than, HIIT style or functional training that of other group fitness studios. So yeah, we're more strength-focused predominantly, but it's fully immersive. So it's low lights, loud bass, it's dark inside, it's got, when I say immersive, it's triggering all of the senses. So it's dark, the music's really loud, but there's also a signature scent in every studio. So there's a diffuser that, is supposed to trigger motivation and that's why we say fully immersive. But yeah, so it's kind of like a nightclub, but without the alcohol.
I've been to a few of these, and especially at your gym in Joondalup. It's a surreal experience. It's very dark. It's not easy to create content in there. I can tell you that now. I've been faced with my challenges coming to your studio before, but the I quite like the fact that you don't have. I'm a very self-conscious person, and I feel that like there you know it's dark enough to sort of don't worry about your roles or don't worry about how you look or what you're sweating or whatever, right?
There's
And
also no mirrors. So
no, that is true. I never picked up on that one.
yeah, there's one in the tunnel when you walk in so that people can take selfies, but in the actual studio, there's no mirrors.
That's incredible. And so the one thing, though, I have to say that I find coming from, if you're going to go in the morning to the gym, let's say, especially in the wintertime, go from dark to dark and then you go into that light. Like, it feels like it's quite a nice way because you come from your room with being dark, whatever, and then you go to another dark space, but then you feel like you're waking up with the music, the lights and everything. And then, yeah, do you know what I mean? I feel it's not hitting you bang slap in the face, bright lights, white studio, that kind of thing. It's very, very different.
I think that's like a lot of the reason why I fell in love with it as well, because like I said, I wasn't a gym goer before I went. So I was also self-conscious and I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And like that whole side of things can be intimidating for first-time gym goers. So I think that's a lot of the reason why I fell in love with it myself, is all the things that you're saying.
So then you become a member. You're a member. You love the community. How did you go about buying this business, this concept? Like, well, not the concept, but how did you go about getting a franchise for it?
I think I was 6 months into a membership at that point. And at that point, the brand wasn't as big as what it is now either. So the founders of S30 were still in the gym. You know, they were still in the studio. They were still coaching sometimes. And I kind of just got to know them and had more conversations with them about, you know, the potential of owning a studio. But at the time, my partner and I were also we were actively looking for some sort of business investment, but we didn't know what it was going to be.
Okay, so you use the word investment. Is that what you've learned through the real estate game? You need to invest. How did you learn about this?
No, I think it was more so just like wanting something that was ours. You know what I mean? Like the idea of having a passive investment that would add to our financial freedom. And, you know, I listen to a lot of podcasts about money and read a lot of books about money. So I think it was just, yeah.
But it's not just financially to open up a gym.
No, absolutely not.
It's not a cheap exercise, is it?
No, absolutely not. And I think the beginning, at the beginning of the journey, it was for an investment, but it quickly evolved into so much more than that. And also, if you work or if you have anything to do with the fitness industry, you know that it's not an extremely profitable industry. So it's, yeah.
So is it an investment then?
I mean, it is. Yeah, it is now. It wasn't for a while, but it is now. But it's an investment that takes work and a lot of grind. And I think a lot of people think a passive income is something they don't have to think about. And they can just set and forget, like crypto or something. But it's it takes a lot. It's not a set and forget at all.
So, you're saying, I guess there would have been moments where you thought, why on earth am I doing this?
So many times. Yeah.
Could you have given up?
Never. I'm not a quitter.
So can you get us through those moments where you thought, you know what, I'm going to see it through?
Yeah.
But can you take us back to a specific moment that you thought, do you know what, I don't know if this is worth it, but I'm going to keep battling through?
To be honest, it was the day before we opened. Yeah, the day before we opened, I had full mental breakdown. I was just because I think the stress of, you know, we were trying to save money where we could. So we were doing a lot of the fit out and the build ourselves. But on top of that, I was also trying to sell memberships and trying to get, you know, do pre-sales and trying to hire staff and all in this world that I knew nothing about. Not just business ownership, but fitness in general. How do I look for a good coach? What even is a good coach? You know, all these sorts of things. I was doing that for the whole 3 months leading up to open day. And the day before open day, we were supposed to have a launch party. Well, we did have a launch party, but the studio wasn't ready. So I just had a mental breakdown.
I can only imagine how stressful that must be. The fit out. I've followed a few other gyms where, you know, they go through the setbacks of the gym can't open on that date because of, you know, there's something leaking or something's not working or the tradies didn't arrive on time, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's tough in itself, right? And you're saying that you don't come from a fitness background, you don't know who you're employing next, but I think that what I'm hearing from you is you do have that you're a people person, and I think you probably get and understand people from from a gut feeling, right?
100%. I hate to admit it, but like there's many of my coaches who I didn't even ask for their Cert 3. Like I know they've got it now, but in those stages I was like, yeah, you've got the job, because it was purely based off of a coffee that I had with them or a conversation that we had.
Is there any specific like moment that you think, yeah, they're the right person? Did you have any sort of tick system in your mind that you kind of go, that they're a good fit, or do you just
I just
purely
think
go by the vibe?
I think it's connection. Yeah, like it's the same thing in real estate, and I think that's one of the major like qualities that both industries hold or similarities that they hold is that both of them are people businesses. Because even the gym, like obviously it's health and fitness related, but people can go get fit anywhere. They don't need to come to S30 just to, get the results. They can do that anywhere. They're there because of the connection that they have either to me or to my staff and, the culture that we've built. It's a people business.
And I'm just about going to touch on the culture aspect of things. So did you know before those doors opened that you knew that the staffing was going to be the most important part of the gym?
100%.
And so did you know what kind of culture you wanted? Or is that kind of directed from the HQ flagship of S30? Do they tell you what kind of culture they want you to bring to the gym, or is that kind of down to your personal thing?
HQ didn't have anything to do with the hiring process. Like I hired all of my own staff. And I knew from the get-go that culture and community was my focus, even from, post open, like up to maybe 6 or 8 months post open. I never was focused on the growth of the business. I focused my goal was to grow a community, and I focused on member retention and member engagement, and like that was a priority for me. And I think like a lot of business owners would be more focused on growth and getting bums on seats, but that's not what I was after. I knew that if my business was going to last, that the culture had to kind of take me through it and guide me through that. Because
where did you learn that about the culture?
I want to say that first real estate job that I had, like the culture in that office, all those agents that I mentioned who supported me, even though I was the youngest in the industry, they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And the culture in that office was, I don't think that my career in real estate would have been as successful as it was if I had have gone somewhere else.
And you're trying to build this culture at S30, and you knew that was what's going to last and make it last a long time, right?
Yeah, I wanted to be that person for them, for my staff. I wanted them to know that I believed in them, that I saw something in them that they didn't see in themselves.
And so when you make them believe that, what does that look like?
Well, it's just like, first of all, like me and my staff have more of a personal relationship now. Obviously, we've got boundaries, but like it's that, we're friends and I support them and even their journeys outside of the gym. If any of them have business journeys or things that they want to do outside of the gym, I support them every step of the way because I know how important that is.
Is there a subtle conflict of interest though, right? You got your gym. At the end of the day, you still need the memberships to be able to keep the place open and have that financial return, right? You build a really good relationship with your PTs, right? Your managers and so on. But if they do decide to venture off and have their own business, how does that make you feel? Like, although you say you're supportive of that, but does that give you a little bit of a potential red flag? They might not last longer. Do you have like a bit of a plan in place in case I think, do you know what? They can welcome. You see something in them. You believe in them. You give them so much value.
Yeah.
Do you have a backup plan in your mind?
I don't have a backup plan. I just, I know, it's just what I mean. I'm not a planner. I don't have a backup plan, but I think like one thing that nobody talks about when it comes to business ownership is like how anxiety riddled you'll become of like thinking one day that your staff will leave. It's like the biggest stress of this whole thing. I can deal with the pressure of selling memberships. I can deal with all of that. I can deal with the lights turn off and, everything shuts down. That's fine. But like no one talks about that. It's that like losing your staff is like your biggest fear.
And so do you still worry about that now?
All the time. But I think that's why I try to support them through their journey, because I know that like if they feel supported and if they feel like they can come to me with anything, that it will hopefully minimize the risk of them resenting their job because it got in the way of something else they wanted to do or because,
Just trying to find a link between your real estate and the gym. I feel like the real estate, obviously, you're very much you and that client.
Yeah.
There's not potentially, well, HR doesn't really sort of necessarily kick into there. Is there HR work with your staff?
What do you mean?
So dealing with emotions, dealing with people not achieving certain KPIs.
I
kind of
don't
stuff.
like we have KPIs as a business, but I don't put that responsibility on my staff. Like I don't think that that's their responsibility. I think KPIs and achieving those targets is my responsibility, and it's my responsibility to help drive them towards those results. But, and we go through it and they've got full clarity of what our numbers are, but it's not their responsibility to grow my business.
So you are the marketing and the membership person that takes on all these memberships on. So you don't give that responsibility to your manager or anything of that sort.
I drive those departments, but I have a manager who assists me. But I don't say to her, if you don't set these targets, like, we're gonna have a problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's not her responsibility.
Do you think that that's from having worked with multiple gyms? That's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
That, like, I hear a lot of gym managers responsible for, I need to get, chase up the phone calls, chase up, this member wants to quit, but how do we keep him on, blah, blah, blah. I feel that I've heard that multiple times from managers that manage the gym, not so much the owners. You're the owner of the gym and you've taken that on, as well as, still doing your real estate.
Yeah. Well, don't get me wrong. Like, my manager she calls, she makes conversions, but her, like, obviously I'm speaking on her behalf, but I would say that her drive is more so about building the community and making it bigger and adding to it and, making sure that everyone gets to experience what we have to offer at AS30 Joondalup. I think that is her focus. It's not like, oh shit, I've got to get this many members by the end of the month, or like, that's not her responsibility.
I think that's incredible. And I think that, like, the way you support your staff and the way you don't necessarily, I wouldn't say indirectly put pressure that, like, don't worry if you don't get those conversions because it's down to you. I think that's incredible as a leader.
Yeah.
Because not only, I think that it's incredible, but I think there's a fine balance.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, okay, then it puts a lot of pressure on yourself to make sure you get the numbers and keep them, ticking over. But I think that builds a lot of trust with your, with your staff, that the fact that, that you do set a level of expectation.
Yeah, of course. There's boundaries, 100%. And they know what I expect from them, but, it's not their responsibility to grow my business at the end of the day.
What sort of boss are you with them in S30?
I think I'm the kind of boss who says something when it needs to be said, 100%. Like, I don't bite my tongue. If something's wrong, I'll tell them straight away. But I'm also the kind of boss who, like, they feel comfortable to come to me with their personal issues, or, like, if they've got ideas about things that they might want to do outside of the gym, or like whatever that might be. I think I'm that sort of boss who tells them what they need to hear when they need to hear it, but I also support them wholeheartedly, and I want the best for them.
I love that. So you open up the gym, morning routine, I suppose, start kicking in then, because what's your first class? 5:30? 5:15.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about, because I've gotten a few notes here of your daily brain dump, deep work, early mornings. I mean, and I've got here one. I'm going to touch on Notion, but you say that you'll deep work for 60 to 90 minutes before you even open up emails.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through and tell us a little bit more what that looks like?
Yeah, sure. So the routine definitely started since, like, the business ownership, because, like I said, I realized I don't have enough hours in the day. So I need to wake up earlier to achieve what I need to achieve. But also, like, my own health and well-being has become a massive priority for me over the last 2 years. So I knew that I needed time to fit that in. So yeah, my morning, like, I'm up at 4:30 every morning. I'm that I need a bit of time to wake up in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I've forced myself to be. So I need a moment to wake up and spend time with my dogs and just kind of, like, float around while I wake up. And then I'm either going to the 5:15 class and then walking my dogs, or I'm walking my dogs and then going to the 6:15 class, depending how I feel that morning.
And you reckon that, like, an interesting thing, I was watching a Stephen Bartlett thing last night, the behind the scenes, and he said something really interesting that really caught my eye, and listening to it was that being consistent you've got to be consistent, right, to be able to create a routine and so on. But it's easy to not follow that routine and to be consistent. It's easy to have those two voices in your head. Do you ever have that?
I do, but I guess I'm really good at like I think I'm really disciplined. Like that's one thing I've learned about myself is that it goes back to that thing that I said before is like when I want something, I'll just do whatever I have to do to get it. And I know that like wanting, I want my business to succeed and I want my career to thrive and I want to be healthy and I want to be, I want to be the best version of myself. And so I just wake up and do that.
And you started documenting a bit of your morning journey, your reading before you go into the gym or work and that kind of stuff. So are you a content creator now as well?
I mean, I'd like to say so, but I don't think I am yet.
And so, and what made you take the plunge to do it?
Well, I think I wanted to share my journey. That was like the massive thing because I get a lot of questions about like, how do you do it all? Like, how are you doing it all and still waking up early and still getting your steps in and still walking your dogs? And all of a sudden you're like on the other side of the world. It's like, where do you find time to do all that? I get that question a lot. So I guess I just wanted to share a bit more of that journey and like also open up about the fact that, because like you said, if you look at my social media, you wouldn't expect half of the stuff that I've said here today. And like, I want to normalize that because that's the case with almost every content creator that we probably watch,
And I think that, I believe that's the point of the Brain Breaks podcast is to bring people like yourself on because it's so easy to see what we see on socials because you're sharing what you want us to see, right?
Yeah.
But there's those moments, those struggles, and that has made you who you are today, right? And so on here, you've put on here that you've said that perfectionism is a thief of success.
Yeah.
Can you go and tell us a little bit more what that means to you?
Yeah, so I still struggle. Like I'm definitely not. Like I was gonna say I'm not perfect, but I'm not really much better at this. It's something that I'm still working on, but I am a real perfectionist. Like I don't want to let things out in the universe until they're perfect or until they're finished. And one thing I realized massively with the opening of the gym was that like you can have a mental breakdown the day before and cry your little heart out, but like and then it shows up perfect, but no one actually cares. You know what I mean? Like they're not there for this perfect version of the gym or like what the bathrooms look like. They don't actually care. They're just there for results. And that's what most of us want in one way or another is some form of result, whether it's a physical or a career or, whatever it might be. We're all just out here trying to get results and no one actually cares about like how it's perceived.
That's so interesting. And for you to get these results, are you personally or is the business using any kind of AI programs to help you get to those goals?
100%, yeah.
So what are you using? I'm interested.
I use OpenAI, like the latest version. I use it because I run all of like the marketing strategy for the business, as well as like, all the numbers that we've spoken about here today, bookkeeping, all that fun stuff. But I use it massively for the marketing side of things, for sure. My content creation and the business's marketing.
And I think that's something to not be ashamed to talk about.
I'm not ashamed of it at all. I'd be more ashamed to say that I spend 20 hours of my week doing something that ChatGPT can do for me.
I mean, it's we're now talking about AI agents. Have you heard about that?
No.
So AI agents that they basically literally are your agent that will automate a lot of stuff in the background. I think the ChatGPT is very much what we see at the forefront. The general public will use ChatGPT as, can you perfect this letter or create me a bit of a strategy or whatever. But when you deep dive into the AI aspect of things, it's extremely powerful. But it also, what I'm learning about it is that it still needs a human touch onto it to make sure that whatever is spitting out the other end is justified by a human.
I find that too. Like I write my ad copies on ChatGPT, but I tweak them every time because I'm like, oh, that's a bit robotic.
A bit robotic, yeah, absolutely. So moving from, you've got your gym, you're running your real estate, and you're still running that full time, your real estate, as well as doing the gym.
Yeah.
How much time, which one do you prefer? It sounds like you're a bit split because it sounds like you still enjoy the real estate.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the people thing, but also potentially a financial aspect of things.
Yeah, it gives me security for sure. To be completely honest, like I thought that opening a business would be my ticket out of real estate. And I think I had really lost my passion for it at that time in my life. But interestingly, like since opening the gym and being like going into the business ownership world, it's actually reignited my passion for real estate, which is interesting. I think it's more so about the variety. Like I'm one to get bored very easily. So if I had to just live the same day doing the same thing every single day, I just get bored and then I want to move on. So now that I've got like, each day is a bit of this, bit of that, I put multiple hats on every day. And a lot of people would probably be stressed out by that, but like I thrive in that environment.
How do you find time for loved ones, partner?
Well, most of my loved ones are in New Zealand. But yeah, I do have a partner and he also is very career driven. So I guess we have that in common where we make it work. We travel a lot. We do a lot of fun stuff as well. But we're both very career driven. So
As you opening up the business, the gym, being successful in the real estate game, has that had an impact on your relationship?
I would say yes. Yeah, to be honest. I think definitely the business ownership side of things. It's first of all, they always say that you shouldn't own a business with your partner or so that comes into it. But I think it's more so just like the constant pressure and the pulling and tugging from all ends for both of us has put pressure on the relationship. Yeah.
Do you think you're more in the driving seat for S30 than your partner?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he will admit that he doesn't really have much to do with it.
Much so, Rachel sort that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, you're very cutthroat, very black and white. It is what it is on paper, right? Is there anything that you think people misunderstand about you?
Well, I think like people misunderstand or misinterpret where I come from and like the background and like if I tell you the story, like most people do exactly what you just did and they're like, what? Like they don't expect it.
And I don't think that's ever been shared though, what you're speaking about publicly.
Not on a public.
So I feel very privileged the fact that you've opened up, on Brain Breaks and spoken about that. So I do appreciate that. I just want to, what I find really fascinating is from your background to becoming a leader and becoming successful in the real estate game and focusing on community for your gym. I've got here building a strong community, right? I'm just going to read the question as it is. But you've built a strong team and your community around you. What secret is it to build what secret to build and trust a leadership? Well, what's your secret to building trust and leadership? Sorry, do you want me to read it again? Because sorry, I do apologize because me trying to read, I'm dyslexic, ADHD, all sorts of things. Trying to listen, trying to read doesn't sometimes go well together. But you've built a strong team and community around you, right? We get that. What's your secret to building and trust? Sorry, I will cut that. We'll go, producer Riley, we'll cut that bit out. Sorry. What's your secret to building trust and leadership? Because you've got to build a leader, right?
Yeah.
Not just you.
I just feel like, and I don't know if this is like a lack of self-awareness, but like, I don't think there is a secret. And I think that's the secret, like you can't plan, okay, what am I going to do to make sure that people trust me? Like, that's not, you can't plan how you're going to be a good leader and then live by that every day, especially if it doesn't align with who you are. So my secret is that I just be myself and hope that people like me.
I think that, obviously that speaks for itself because I've seen the community S30. It's strong. Like, and people do rock up, but I think that whatever you've influenced your team to do, right? Because you can't be there every single day.
Yeah.
Right. And your expectations will be extremely high of your team. Right. And one thing that I've always said to my team is that, like, you got to imagine before you go to a shoot that I've been there and 99% of the time, 99% of the time I have, and the expectation and the bar is at X level, right?
Yeah.
So for you to be able to build that trust and making sure that everyone, sings from the same hymn sheet, that takes a lot of time for you to build that and to be able to make sure that there's a level of quality control.
Yeah, 100%. I think in the beginning stages we put a lot of effort into like the standards of, obviously you've seen it, but like the standards of, when they do their intros, when they do their demos, how they greet people, if they're new or if they've never been there before, they both get different greetings. Like, all of this is stuff that we spend a lot of time on in the beginning. And I'm lucky enough to have majority of my coaches that have been with me from day one, and they are able to, and two of them have now picked up more responsibility in the business, and they're able to pass that knowledge on. And luckily they both hold the same standard that I do, so if we do have another coach that comes in and is not quite meeting that standard, like it's a discussion instantly.
Yeah, right. So you just literally don't wait for that to sort of like, oh, they'll be all right. You literally get in there and put that fire out, or you fix the problem ASAP.
Yeah, of course.
And so doing that, what do you think the benefits are of doing that and just getting it done straight away, fixing those issues straight away?
Well, it just maintains that culture. It maintains that community, because if my staff feel like they have to pick up the slack of other coaches, that's when the culture shifts, and I don't want that. They don't need that. I don't want that for them. So.
And so I'm so fascinated. I know coming back a lot about the S30 and talking about your culture, because what I find really interesting is that you have built this with no knowledge, and you're running one of the most successful gyms, in the northern suburbs, and your community is strong. It sounds like Rachel's not done. Like, it sounds like Rachel may have some other things up. Although you say you don't plan, I sort of subtly don't believe you, because I believe that you've probably got something else that you're thinking, because you get bored.
Yeah, I do.
What's the next thing?
I don't want to, I'm not ready to talk about it. But yeah, we are working on a little something. That's as much as I'm going to say.
We can release this podcast when it's about to launch if you want. We can strategically place that. You can't give any hints away of what it might be.
I mean, I can give it to you, but I can't give it
off record. Okay, all right. Producer Riley, we'll make sure that's not in the thing. All right, we'll do it afterwards. Okay, that's fine. I won't push that any further. That's all good.
Okay.
Rachel, I very much appreciate this conversation. I've learned so much about you and the way you've gone through your struggles, and let's say your upbringing maybe that was normal for you to others as not a normal upbringing, but what is normal. And you being able to share that story and showcase that you've gone through these struggles. You've taught yourself how to save money. You've taught yourself that, a plane ticket out, and there's more than just the four walls in your town, village, where you're from. And you've shared that with us, and I'm so grateful that you've been able to do that. There is one last thing on the Brain Break, the podcast, that we do, right? And we have got listeners and viewers, because this goes on YouTube as well. We like to have a Brain Breaks challenge, right?
Okay.
And I'll just literally read it, right? So it's here. So a Brain Break challenge. Can you give something small that the listeners and viewers, right, they can do this week to improve their mindset or their business?
This week
or next couple of weeks. The whole point of it is that you give them a challenge that they may or may not do, who knows, but then they can reach out back to you and say, hey, I've done this. And then you can outreach to a new set of followers or listeners or people that might be inspired by your story. Can you give anyone a challenge that they can do or focus to push themselves?
I'd say it's probably that 60 to 90 minutes of deep work in the morning. I think, like, especially if you're on a journey to own a business, or you already own a business, I think you would know it's a constant rat race in business, and you never really feel like you're doing enough. So I think that, like, implementing that first 60 to 90 minutes of deep work into my morning before the emails, because the emails, it's like, that's it. There's once the emails are open, it's all over. So I
know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Just like one email, and you feel like you're just constantly responding to emails.
Yeah, and then one comes when one gets deleted, and it's just like, so I do that first 60, 90 minutes of work before I open my emails every single day. And that can be anything. Like, that 60, 90 minutes can be literally anything from, like, I like to, like, learn new skills, or like I have a business coach who helps me in the fitness world as well. So, like, I do a bit of some of those modules, or I do calls with him. Or like, yeah, just anything that's like, and now also I'm trying to go down the content creation road. So like I do a bit of filming, just stuff that's actually going to help me get to where I am trying to get to before the emails just all of a sudden hold up my day and it's like 6 p.m. and I'm still answering the same emails.
Oh, I love that.
Because the emails that's where you got into a hole.
Just don't even emails. I can feel my watch going off. As like 3 or 4 that have gone off between during this conversation, and as a business owner myself, like I get it that like you don't really sort of switch off. So I'm going to take something from that 60 to 90 minute deep work, just get things done in the morning or whatever that may be, and just
you can like put a timer on, put like a deep focus playlist on Spotify, like those are really good as well, and like put your phone on do not disturb. Like I promise you'll get so much done. It's actually wild.
Rachel, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's been incredible having you on. Thank you for sharing your journey. And, it's just been such a whirlwind hearing your story. So I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.